They say her life is perfect. A powerful professor married into billionaire luxury, a mansion, a reputation, a marriage that looks flawless from the outside. But perfection is a lie. And every lie eventually demands truth, because there's one secret pulse she can't control. Her heart accelerates for the one man she should never want. Not a student, not a colleague. Even worse, her husband's son. He isn't just handsome. He is dangerously irresistible, tall, effortlessly confident. With those eyes that make any woman forget who she's supposed to be. And today, her husband leaves. No goodbye, no return date. Just a cold slam of the door, and a silence that feels like permission. Down in the mansion's garage, she hears him. The sound of tools, metal, and power. She follows it. She shouldn't, but she does. And when she sees him, sweat on skin, grease on strong hands, that slow, crooked smirk, something inside her slips. One compliment, one step too close, one shared breath that lasts too long. A spark ignites. A spark they both feel, and both fear. Because this is more than attraction, more than curiosity. This is the moment temptation wakes up and refuses to be ignored. The professor knows. Her marriage just became a battlefield. And the most dangerous part? She doesn't want to win. She wants him. At first she thought it was just a spark, a moment of weakness, a silly flutter she could control. But the truth is, her heart wasn't confused. It was waking up. Ever since that moment in the garage, her mind refuses to behave. Every lecture she gives at the university, every paper she grades, every breath she takes, somehow leads back to him, Leo, the man she isn't supposed to feel anything for. She tells herself to stop. She repeats it like a formula her brain should solve. He is off limits. He is your husband's son. You are a grown woman with a perfect life. But logic fails in the face of desire. And Leo, he doesn't make it easy. He walks around the mansion with a quiet confidence, like he already knows every weakness she's trying to hide. His presence is a storm, silent but capable of destroying everything. He avoids her eyes, yet somehow sees straight into her soul. One afternoon she passes by the poolside. The sun hits him just right. Water dripping from his hair, shirt clinging to muscle, eyes sharp enough to cut through her defenses. He notices her. Of course he does. She tries to speak like a professor, calm, composed, unbothered. Swimming is good exercise, she says, voice too soft. He raises a brow. Are you suggesting I'm out of shape? A playful tone, but his gaze doesn't match. His gaze challenges her. She steps closer, not because she should, but because her heart moves her feet without permission. I'm suggesting you look. Her voice catches. The word amazing almost slips out. He stares at her long enough that her pulse stumbles. She clears her throat. Professional mask back on. A healthy, a terrible lie. He knows it. She knows it. Leo drops his towel over his shoulder and stands tall. Professor. The way he says that title, low, controlled, makes her knees question gravity. You need to be careful with the things you say. His voice brushes against her skin like a forbidden touch. Elena swallows, pretending she doesn't feel the fire growing inside her. You think I'm afraid? Leo steps just 1 inch closer. Not enough to cross a line, just enough to prove it exists. I think you're playing a dangerous game. Her breath shakes. He notices. He always notices, but then he turns his back and walks away, leaving her there with her thoughts. And the truth that terrifies her, he feels it too. He's running from the same temptation she's chasing. That night, Elena sits alone in her study. Books open. Laptop on. Nothing makes sense. Because the only lesson she's learning now has nothing to do with science or psychology. It's about desire. And the one man who makes her forget every rule she ever lived by. And the more she tries to stay away, the more her heart pulls her toward him. He's not just attractive. He's magnetic, a gravity she can't fight. He is the risk. And the reward. And the worst part? His eyes. They're not just beautiful, they challenge her. Question her, dare her, and she has always been a woman who refuses to lose a challenge. She wasn't looking for an excuse, but the excuse came looking for her. A problem with the classic car in the garage, the same one Leo was working on when her heart first betrayed her. The engine won't start, a simple issue. One phone call could fix it, but she doesn't call the mechanic. She calls him. She tells herself it's logical. He's already familiar with the car. But logic isn't what drives her anymore. It's curiosity, temptation, a hunger she refuses to name. Leo arrives in the garage wearing a plain black shirt and loose jeans. Nothing special. Yet he looks unforgettable. He wipes his hands on a cloth, but the slight stain of grease remains, like trouble that refuses to wash away. "You needed me?" he asks. The question is innocent. The look isn't. Elena clears her throat. "The car won't start. I thought maybe—" Her voice gets lost in the heat of his stare. He nods. No argument. Just silent agreement and silent danger. He opens the hood. Metal groans. Machines obey him. She stands close. Too close, pretending she wants to understand the issue. But the only thing she understands is him. Every movement he makes speaks louder than words. Control, focus, strength. A man who knows what he's doing. And exactly what effect he has on her. He leans deeper into the car. His shirt lifts slightly, revealing the kind of perfection that should be illegal. Her eyes linger. Her breath stumbles. And he notices. "You can come closer if you really want to learn," he says. She does. She steps forward. Now they're shoulder to shoulder. Her perfume mixes with the scent of grease and metal. His breath brushes the side of her neck. By accident, or maybe not. Her fingers rest lightly on the car. His hand moves, barely grazing hers. A spark, small, electric, impossible to ignore. Leo stiffens. As if the universe just crossed a line he's been guarding with everything he has. "Professor," he whispers. Warnings hide in that one word, but warnings don't matter when the heart has already made a dangerous decision. Elena lifts her gaze to his profile. Sharp jaw, focused eyes, lips that look like they could destroy logic forever. She exhales, soft, shaky. "You're good with engines. And you're good at starting fires you can't put out," he replies. Her heart drops, then takes flight, because now it's undeniable. He feels it too. The tension thickens. Silence becomes heavy. The world shrinks to two people, and a car that suddenly doesn't matter. Leo steps back first, not because he wants to, but because he must. He wipes his hands again, a nervous habit he's never had before.
"Engine's fine," he says.
But his voice is too rough, too uneven. She narrows her eyes. "Then why won't it start?" Leo looks at her, really looks, as if she already knows the answer. "Some things refuse to move when they're fighting themselves," he says quietly. Her breath catches, because they're no longer talking about the car. For a moment, neither speaks. Not because there's nothing to say, but because every word now feels like a step off a cliff. Finally, he turns away. The safest choice. But safety doesn't erase desire. It only delays it. As he heads out, he glances back once. That glance is a promise. A promise that this fire isn't dying. It's growing. Faster than either of them can control. She promised herself she wouldn't think about him tonight. She promised she'd focus on her work, her career, her goal, all the things that once defined her. But promises are fragile, especially when loneliness pours the drinks. The night is too quiet. Her husband hasn't called. Not once. One glass of wine becomes two. Two becomes, she stops counting. Each sip melts away her logic and leaves her alone with her truth, the truth that looks like Leo. She wanders into the living room and turns on soft music. Lights dim. Shoes off. Her hair loosened. And for once, she lets herself be human. Soft, vulnerable, deserving of affection. But vulnerability is never truly private. Leo walks in from the backyard, fresh from training, sweat glistening on his skin, towel around his neck. Completely unaware of the storm he's walking into, he freezes when he sees her. Elena isn't the strict, polished professor right now. She's a woman whose heart has been starving for far too long. "Leo." Her voice is a whisper of silk. He steps closer and slowly, carefully, like approaching a wild flame that could burn or warm. "You've been drinking," he says gently. She smiles, tipsy honesty shining in her eyes. "I learned alcohol is the best way to silence the rules in my head." He swallows hard, because he knows exactly which rules she means. She walks up to him, no hesitation this time. Her fingertips graze the back of his hand. A touch so light, yet it sends a shock through both of them. She looks up at him, eyes glossy but fearless. "Do I make you uncomfortable?" A dangerous question. Leo's jaw tightens, truth-fighting discipline. You make me want what I shouldn't want. Her breath catches. That's the sentence her heart has been dying for. She places her palm on his chest, right over the heartbeat struggling to stay calm. I think about you, she whispers. More than I should. The confession escapes her like a secret too heavy to hold. His eyes close for one brief moment. The kind that says I've been thinking the same thing. The room crackles. Every second dares them to forget who they are. Her face inches closer, lips almost touching his. But Leo suddenly steps back. Not because he doesn't want her, but because he wants her too much. You're not yourself right now, he says, voice shaking from the effort. She frowns, hurt and confused. He gently holds her shoulders, steady and strong. You deserve a moment that's real. Not one blurred by wine. Not one she'll regret in the morning. Respect, that's what stops him. And respect makes the desire even more dangerous. Leo leads her upstairs, not to cross a line, but to protect one. He lays her gently on the bed, covers her with a blanket. Her eyelids flutter, heavy with sleep. Before drifting off, she whispers one last truth. Don't leave me alone tomorrow. His chest tightens, because she has no idea. He's been fighting every day, just to stay away from her. He brushes a strand of hair from her face, careful not to wake her. I won't, he promises softly. Then he walks out the door, and prays morning doesn't turn into another battle he'll lose. Morning sunlight breaks into the mansion, but peace does not arrive with it. Leo stands in the hallway staring at Elena's door. He hears nothing but his own heart reminding him why he had to walk away last night, and why he wants to walk right back in. He promised her he wouldn't leave her alone, and he keeps his promises. But before he can knock, his phone buzzes. A message. From his father, the billionaire. Change of plans, I'll be away longer, don't tell her why. Leo's brows tighten. Don't tell her, why? He scrolls further, archived messages. He shouldn't look, but he does. Documents, hotel invoices, surveillance photos. His father isn't on business. He's with another woman. Not just any woman, someone glamorous, secretive, and bold. Someone he calls my real future. The floor beneath Leo feels like it shifts. Rage strikes his chest like a punch. Not for himself, but for Elena. For the woman who stays loyal to a man, who doesn't even respect her enough to lie properly. Leo's guilt begins to melt, and something more dangerous forms. Protectiveness. Elena finally steps out, eyes soft but heavy, gorgeous in her vulnerability. She sees him instantly, and when he looks at her, she knows he stayed. A small smile tugs at her lips, but she hides it before it becomes hope. About yesterday, she begins nervous. Leo shakes his head gently. You don't have to explain, because explanation would make it real, and real is the most forbidden thing of all. She walks to the dining table, but her hands tremble around the coffee cup. The silence between them is loaded, with memories of almost and the gravity of what could still happen. Leo watches her carefully. She deserves the truth. She deserves the world. But the truth will break her heart. Later, Leo calls his father. Leo, cold. You lied about your trip. Adrian, billionaire voice smug with power. I don't owe explanations, especially not to you. Leo's fists clench. She deserves to know. Adrian laughs. She deserves the life I gave her. Stay out of things you don't understand. The line goes dead. Leo stares at his phone, rage like wildfire spreading through him. He can't tell Elena. Not yet, not while she's fragile. Not while last night still lingers in her eyes. So he makes a new promise, one his father never asked for. He will protect her, even from the truth, even from himself. That night, Elena notices the tension in him. You're distant, she whispers. He meets her gaze, and for once lets the storm inside show. There are things you don't know. Things I wish I didn't know either. Her heartbeat quickens. Are you in danger? It's her first instinct to worry about him. And he hates that. He hates that she can care for him more than the man she married. No, he says softly. But you might be. She steps closer, fear rising. Leo, what's happening? He inhales slowly, battling the urge to pull her into his arms and swear he'll never let her be hurt again. When the time is right, you'll know everything. It's a promise that feels like a warning. For the first time, Elena sees it clearly. He is just tempting. He is safe. He is strength. He is everything her husband pretends to be, and that realization makes the attraction impossible to deny. The storm didn't give a warning. Thunder ripped across the sky, lightning splitting the clouds, and with it came the sudden blackness of the mansion's power going out. Candles flickered to life, their flames trembling like her pulse. Shadows danced on the walls, long and sinuous, tracing forms that were dangerously close to touching. Elena and Leo found themselves in the living room, faces lit only by the soft golden glow. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside them, wild, unrestrained, yet terrifyingly beautiful. They stood closer than usual, not because they wanted to, but because the space between them felt impossibly small. The electricity of a single glance, the warmth of shared breath, made the distance between them almost unbearable. She could see every detail, the slope of his jaw, the way the candlelight reflected in his eyes, the gentle tremble in his fingers as he adjusted the sleeve of his shirt. "Professor," he breathed, the single word thick with something unspoken. Her heart slammed. Her throat went dry. Everything inside her screamed to close the remaining inches, to cross the line that her mind kept shouting was forbidden. Lightning struck nearby, illuminating the room for a brief instant. Their shadows merged, lips almost brushing, breaths mingling, the world shrinking to that one shared heartbeat. Time seemed suspended. A kiss lingered in possibility, yet never landed. She reached slightly, almost instinctively, but his hand caught hers. Not in anger, not in avoidance, but in a quiet, commanding restraint. "We can't," he said softly. Not a warning, not a rebuke, but a reminder of rules neither wanted to follow. The storm raged outside, thunder shaking the walls, yet inside a different storm roared. A storm of temptation and control, of desire and restraint, of emotions neither of them could deny. She felt her knees weaken. He felt his chest tighten. Every inch of distance screamed for them to collapse into one another. But they didn't. Instead, he stepped back just enough to restore the line, and called her by the single title that both grounded and tortured her. "Professor." The word hung in the candlelight, a reminder of boundaries, of the world outside their moment, and of everything that would shatter if they ever let go. Elena sank into the couch, hands trembling. She wanted to close her eyes and pretend the almost kiss had never happened. But her heart refused. Her mind refused. Because the almost kiss was never just about lips. It was about the pull between them, the undeniable spark that had been growing since the garage, and now it burned brighter than ever. Leo lingered near the doorway, eyes dark with need and restraint. He wanted her, but he also wanted to protect her. From himself, from her husband, from a fire neither could control. With one final glance, he disappeared down the hallway, leaving her alone with her racing heartbeat and the unbearable certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. The morning sun slanted through the mansion's tall windows, casting long lines of light across the polished marble floors. Elena tried to focus on her papers, her lectures, anything to keep her mind from wandering back to the storm, to the almost kiss, to the pull of Leo that refused to fade. But fate has a way of throwing the heart into chaos. She walked past the courtyard and froze. Leo wasn't alone. A young woman, laughing, bright, effortless, and leaned into him, her hand brushing against his arm in a casual, comfortable way. The sound of her laughter made her stomach twist. Not because it was wrong, but because it made her chest ache. Elena's first reaction was ice. She straightened her back, mask firmly in place, voice clipped, sharp, the kind that commands respect. "Leo," she said, and he immediately turned, smile faltering, but the girl's hand still lingered on his arm, and the sight ignited something she hadn't expected. Jealousy. She stepped closer, carefully neutral in tone, but every muscle in her body screamed the truth. "I want him, only him." Leo noticed the shift instantly. He had grown used to her composed, confident professor facade. Now her eyes were sharper, colder, and her lips pressed into a line that betrayed far more than she would admit. "Elena," he began, hesitation thick in his voice. The girl, sensing the tension, gave a small apologetic smile and stepped away, leaving only the two of them. The mansion suddenly felt smaller, as if walls were closing in on the secret desire neither could ignore. Elena felt her hands clench. Her mind screamed at her to retreat, to keep distance. But her heart betrayed her entirely. Why did seeing him with someone else hurt so much? She asked herself silently. It wasn't lust. It wasn't anger. It was need. A need she couldn't deny anymore. Leo approached cautious, apologetic, but his presence only made her pulse accelerate. "It's nothing," he said softly, trying to diffuse the tension. "She's just a colleague." But the words didn't matter. His proximity mattered. The way he looked at her mattered. The subtle, unspoken pull between them was louder than any explanation. She wanted to tell him she didn't care about anyone else. She wanted to demand that he only notice her. She wanted to confess, to collapse into the danger of what she felt. Instead, she did the only thing she could think of. She acted cold, sharp, detached. "I see," she said, voice carefully neutral. She turned away, letting her heels click sharply on the marble floor, telling herself it was strength. But inside, she knew the truth. Jealousy had become impossible to hide. For Leo, watching her walk away was agony. He wanted to reach for her, to tell her she was the only one who mattered. But the walls she built, both emotional and professional, kept him at bay. The tension between them thickened, like storm clouds gathering silently in the distance. And somewhere deep down they both realized this wasn't just desire. It was war, a battle of heart and restraint, and one careless step could ignite a fire neither would survive. The lab was quiet, almost too quiet. The kind of silence that magnifies every sound, every clink of glass, every scribble of a pen, every heartbeat that refuses to stay calm. Elena worked alone, her mind juggling lectures, research papers, and the lingering storm of emotions that Leo had stirred in her. She didn't notice how close she leaned to the microscope, how her hand trembled with fatigue, or how fragile the world could become in a single misstep. A sharp snap, a sudden slip of a vial, and pain exploded through her wrist. The sting made her gasp, and instinctively she fell back, clutching her arm. The moment stretched. Her breath hitched, her chest heaving, not just from pain, but from the awareness that someone would see her this vulnerable. Before she could even think, a shadow fell across her. Strong hands gently but urgently grasped her wrist. "Elena, are you okay?" Leo's voice was a mixture of alarm and something else. Something deeper, more primal. Concern, protectiveness, desire lurking beneath restraint. He guided her carefully to the lab stool, still holding her wrist. His fingers brushed against her skin. Too long, too close, but neither moved away. The silence between them became dangerous. She tried to focus on her injury, on the research notes spread across the table, but every glance at him, every brush of his hand, every shared breath made it impossible. "You really need to be more careful," he muttered, trying to regain composure. I was just rushing," she replied, voice faltering slightly. Her heart thumped too loudly, almost as if it wanted him to hear it. His hands lingered longer than they should, fingers tracing the gentle curve of her wrist as he checked for bruising. For a fleeting second, the world narrowed. Two people, one small lab, and a tension that threatened to pull them across the line. "You're going to leave a mark," he said softly. Not about the injury, but about the way she affected him. Her lips parted slightly. No words formed, only the heat in the room, the storm of unspoken attraction, and the electricity in their proximity. The danger wasn't in the injury, it was in the pause. The shared moment that should have been fleeting, but stretched impossibly long. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. Because they both knew if either did, everything would change. Finally, Leo stepped back, giving her the space they both desperately needed but secretly didn't want. "Rest your wrist," he said, steadying his voice. "I'll get some ice." But even as he turned away, the tension lingered, humming like a low note in the room, a reminder that boundaries were breaking, and every touch, every glance was one step closer to the point of no return. Elena pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the rapid pulse, and realized something she could no longer deny. This attraction wasn't just dangerous, it was inevitable. Elena's phone vibrated sharply on the nightstand, a sound that made her jump despite the adrenaline still thrumming from the lab. She picked it up, expecting another routine notification. Lecture reminders, student emails, mundane life. Instead, her chest froze. "I'll be home soon, we need to talk." Adrian. Her husband. Not in the distant, abstract way she had been telling herself he was gone. Not just a shadow she could avoid. He was real, and he was coming back. Panic slammed into her like a freight train. Her pulse raced, heart hammering against her ribs. She felt her throat tighten, the sudden dry sting of fear. And then, beneath it all, desire. Because Leo was still in the house. Because the fire she couldn't control was still smoldering, waiting. Her mind spiraled. Why now? Why didn't he say when he'd return? Does he know? Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through the message again. Her body remembered every brush of Leo's hand, every close heartbeat, every almost kiss. The guilt hit first. Her loyalty to her husband, still real, still binding, clashed violently with the desire that refused to die. Every memory of Leo in the garage, in the lab, in the shadows of candlelight rose like an accusation. Leo sensed her turmoil immediately. He approached, careful, quiet, but the tension radiating from her made it impossible to stay neutral. What's wrong? His voice was calm, steady, but there was an edge, a protective edge, sharpened by the knowledge of everything he couldn't say aloud. Elena shook her head, voice barely audible. It's nothing, just my husband. He frowned. He's coming back? She nodded, swallowing hard, the taste of panic and longing bitter on her tongue. Yes, soon. Leo's chest tightened, because he knew what that meant. The moment of safety they had carved between them, the stolen glances, the late-night tension, the almost kisses, it was about to explode. And yet he couldn't leave her alone, couldn't abandon her to face Adrian's return without someone there to protect her, physically, emotionally, and in ways he'd never admit. He doesn't know about us, does he? His voice was a whisper, though every syllable carried the weight of a storm. Elena's eyes widened. Us. The word hovered between them like a flame too close to touch. No, she breathed, and the relief on her face was laced with guilt. But she didn't lie about what she felt, not entirely. Because truth has a way of slipping even when you try to hide it. Lightning cracked outside, a sudden bright flash illuminating the room, casting long shadows that danced across their faces. Leo stepped closer, dangerously close, his eyes searching hers, as if memorizing every reaction, every heartbeat, every tiny falter of restraint. We need to be careful, he murmured, voice low and almost too intimate. Her lips parted, a shiver running down her spine. I can't stop thinking about you, she admitted almost too loudly, almost to herself. The words hung in the air. Electric, forbidden, truthful. Leo's hands twitched, the urge to reach for her almost overwhelming. But he stopped. He always stopped, just before the line they could never legally cross. Then we survive until he comes back, he said, tone firm, protective, yet laced with desire. Her stomach tightened. Her heart raced. Because survival now didn't just mean avoiding discovery. It meant surviving the fire they'd ignited in each other. The storm outside roared, echoing the storm inside. Every lightning strike, every thunderclap, mirrored the battle between loyalty, guilt, and the kind of desire that refuses to die, no matter how forbidden. For Elena and Leo, the countdown had begun. The billionaire was returning, and nothing would ever be the same. The mansion had never felt smaller. Every shadow seemed heavier, every heartbeat louder, every breath sharper. Elena and Leo stood in the dimly lit study, the storm outside still raging, a mirror to the chaos inside them. Her phone sat on the desk, silent now, the message from Adrian still burning in her memory. I'll be home soon, we need to talk. And then Leo spoke, his voice breaking the fragile calm. Why didn't you tell me? His eyes were dark, intense, searching for answers. Tell you what, her voice trembled, defensive yet vulnerable. That you can't stop thinking about me, he almost shouted. A confession, a plea, a warning, all at once. The tension that had been building for weeks finally snapped. Elena's chest heaved, the weight of guilt and desire crashing down. I can't help it. I want you, Leo, I want you, but I'm terrified. Terrified of what it would do to everything. The words tumbled out, jagged and raw. She covered her mouth as if to hold them back, but they were already free. Leo's gaze softened, but his body still trembled with the same restraint that had defined every stolen moment. You don't know how much I've wanted you. Every time I see you, every time you brush past me, He stopped, as if the words themselves might break them both. Elena stepped closer. They were inches apart, faces almost touching. The air was thick with desire, guilt, and longing, a mix neither could control. Lightning flashed through the windows, casting jagged shadows across the room. In that moment, the world outside ceased to exist. There was no husband, no rules, no consequences, just two hearts burning with a need they could no longer deny. Elena's hands reached for his chest, feeling the steady, powerful beat of his heart. Leo, she whispered. Her voice cracked, betraying every emotion she had fought to suppress. He cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing along her jawline. His eyes searched hers for permission, understanding, permission they both secretly wanted. And then the line broke. Their lips met. Soft at first, testing, trembling with the intensity of everything they had denied. Then deeper, hungrier, a kiss that was both sin and salvation. It was a kiss that carried weeks of stolen glances, sleepless nights, near touches, and unspoken confessions. Every ounce of restraint vanished, leaving only desire and truth. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless, hearts racing and minds spinning. Elena's fingers lingered on his chest, tracing the outline of his shirt. We can't do this," she whispered, though the tremor in her voice said otherwise. Leo pressed his forehead to hers, voice low and rough with need and caution. "I know, but I can't stop myself either." For a fleeting second, the world had stopped. Everything outside that room, Adrian Rule's propriety, was irrelevant. All that mattered was the fire between them, undeniable and consuming. But reality waited, and it would not be ignored for long. The storm outside raged on, echoing the storm within them, and both of them knew this kiss was just the beginning. The line had been crossed, and once crossed, it could never be uncrossed. The mansion had never felt colder. Even after the storm, even after the tension, even after the almost kisses and stolen confessions, Elena felt an icy dread settle over her chest. Then the sound of tires on the driveway shattered everything. A car door slamming. Keys jangled. The unmistakable presence of someone she hadn't wanted to face for weeks. Adrian, her husband. He arrived early. No warning, no explanation. Just a sudden return that made her pulse hammer, not with desire this time, but with terror. Leo was near the library, trying to calm the echoing storm in his chest. He didn't hear the front door until the deep, commanding voice of Adrian filled the hall. "Elena, Leo." The words were sharp. Alpha, absolute, like a predator marking territory. Time seemed to freeze. Elena's hand shot to her mouth. Leo's body tensed, protective instincts flaring in an instant. Adrian's eyes scanned the room. They didn't see betrayal in the conventional sense. No physical act had occurred. But emotion doesn't lie. The lingering closeness, the heated glances, the almost touch in the dim candlelight of the previous night. Every subtle shift of body language spoke louder than any words. "You have crossed the line." Rage erupted. Adrian's presence filled the room like a storm cloud, suffocating and unyielding. "I trusted you," he growled, voice low, dangerous. "And yet here you are, sharing something you weren't supposed to share." Leo squared his shoulders, defensive, protective, and finally unafraid. "You don't understand," he said, his voice firm, controlled. But each word carried the fire of weeks of restrained emotion. "It's not what you think." Adrian's laugh was bitter, harsh. "Oh, really? Because I can see it, I can feel it. You've been betraying me emotionally, mentally. And you think words can fix that?" Elena stepped forward, heart hammering. Her own emotions were a tangled storm of fear, guilt, and undeniable desire. "Adrian, it's complicated," she tried to explain. "Nothing physical has happened." But he wasn't listening. Nothing could drown out the betrayal he sensed. The truth he could see reflected in their eyes. Leo moved instinctively. He stepped between them, chest forward, hands clenched but controlled. "Back off," he said, low, commanding. "She doesn't deserve your wrath." The room went silent for a heartbeat. Then thunder crashed outside, mirroring the tension inside. Adrian's eyes burned with fury, but also with a calculated alpha dominance. He took a slow, deliberate step forward. "You think you can protect her from me?" Leo didn't flinch. "I'm not protecting her from you. I'm protecting her from your lies." That stopped Adrian for a fraction of a second. And in that fraction, Elena realized the truth. Leo wasn't just her temptation. He was her shield, her anchor, the man who had become the one she couldn't imagine losing, even if the world demanded she did. The confrontation hung in the air, raw and tense. Each heartbeat a countdown to an inevitable explosion. No one moved. No one spoke. Yet the emotional betrayal was undeniable. A silent admission written in every stolen glance, every touch almost given, every breath shared. The storm outside roared, but it was nothing compared to the storm that had erupted in the mansion. The room was a battlefield. Not one fought with weapons, but with hearts, wills, and silent threats. Adrian's eyes burned with an intensity that could ignite fire. "Leo, if you don't step away from her, I'll ruin you," he said, voice cold, precise, every word measured like a weapon. The words weren't just a threat, they were a promise. Leo's fists clenched, but he didn't retreat. He had already crossed lines Adrian hadn't dared acknowledge. He had already decided what he would fight for. "You can try," Leo said, voice low and steady, but the tremor beneath betrayed the storm of fury inside him. "But you won't win. Not her. Not this time." Elena's chest tightened. Her mind raced, but her body acted before her thoughts could catch up. She stepped between them, hands outstretched, standing tall, unwavering, a force neither man had expected. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice ringing across the room, commanding attention. Both men froze, their breaths heavy, muscles tense. Her loyalty wasn't with the threat. It wasn't with the danger. It was with the heart that had been hidden behind walls for far too long. "This stops now," she said, her gaze shifting between the two most important men in her life. "I won't be treated like a prize, like a pawn, like something to fight over. Leo is not your enemy, Adrian, and I am not yours to control." Adrian's jaw tightened. This was new. Elena asserting herself, drawing a line he hadn't anticipated. He had expected fear, submission, compliance. Instead, he saw fire, defiance, and something far more dangerous, unwavering loyalty. Leo's eyes softened almost imperceptibly at her act of courage. She hadn't saved him from Adrian. She had saved them both from the darkness of surrender. The room shifted. Trust rebalanced itself in an instant. Leo's admiration for her deepened, beyond desire, beyond attraction, into something permanent. He realized the line he was fighting to cross wasn't just about passion. It was about mutual respect, loyalty, and shared truth. Adrian's control wavered, a flicker of doubt appearing in the storm of his alpha presence. For the first time, he questioned whether threats, power, and intimidation could dominate a bond built on choice and courage. Elena took a deep breath. Her voice softened, yet every word carried weight. "If you want to fight, fight me, not him. Because my heart, my trust belongs to me, and I will decide who gets it." The statement was seismic. It shifted the balance of power. It forced both men to see her, not just as a woman of beauty or desire, but as someone who would not be claimed, controlled, or manipulated. Lightning flashed through the windows, illuminating the faces of the three people caught in this storm. It was no longer just about anger, lust, or betrayal. It was about respect, loyalty, and the courage to defy what everyone else expected of them. Leo stepped forward slightly, letting the tension linger. Adrian didn't move. He realized, finally, that some battles couldn't be won through fear. Elena's eyes met Leo's. Unspoken words passed between them. Gratitude, desire, recognition of shared danger, and the growing certainty that nothing could sever what was already igniting between them. The mansion that once radiated power and perfection now felt like a war zone. Rooms that had echoed with laughter now reverberated with tension, threats, and whispered accusations. The walls, polished and gleaming, reflected only chaos, betrayal, and looming disaster. Elena walked through the corridors, each step heavy with dread. Her phone buzzed endlessly. Lawyers, advisors, journalists. Every message a reminder that her husband's secrets weren't just personal. They were now public. Adrian's private betrayal exposed. The affair, the lies, the hidden assets. The world that had once revered their marriage now scrutinized every word, every move, every glance. Leo stayed close, a silent anchor amid the storm. The weight of the scandal did not scare him. But seeing Elena's vulnerability ignited a protective fire that roared hotter than desire. He could see the fatigue etched into her features, the trembling of her hands, the strain in her posture. And yet even in chaos she remained unbroken. "You don't have to face this alone," he murmured, his voice low, steady. But she shook her head. "I have to," she said, chest tight, eyes blazing with determination. "I need to decide who I am, what I want, what I will stand for." The lawyers arrived like storm clouds, papers in hand, issuing demands and threats with clinical precision. "Sign here, protect your reputation. Avoid scandal at all costs." Elena stared at the contract, feeling the weight of society, tradition, and expectation pressing down on her shoulders. But she knew the truth, the raw, uncomfortable, liberating truth. Leo, her heart, her desire, her life that was no longer dictated by a man who had betrayed her. Adrian, smug and dangerous, expected compliance. He expected her to bow, to choose security over love, to protect the illusion of a marriage that had already crumbled. Instead, Elena stepped forward, hands trembling but voice strong. "No, I will not sign. I will not be controlled. I will not lie for the sake of appearances. This marriage ends today. The words hit like thunder, reverberating through the halls, stopping lawyers, servants, and even Adrian himself. For a moment, silence reigned. Then chaos erupted. Adrian's rage was immediate, explosive, alpha dominance on full display. You'll regret this. I built everything for you. Do you think you can just throw it all away? Elena didn't flinch. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from freedom. She had chosen truth over reputation. She had chosen herself. And in that choice, she had chosen Leo. Not just for desire, but for loyalty, protection, and love that defied the rules. Leo stepped beside her, hands clenched, ready to defend. Not out of anger, but out of a promise. To protect her, to stand with her, to fight for the love that had grown in the shadows. In the storm and in every forbidden glance, the mansion no longer represented power or perfection. It was a battlefield, yes, but also the place where Elena had reclaimed her voice, her heart, and her destiny. The mansion that once symbolized wealth and untouchable power now felt hollow. The echoes of legal battles, shattered trust, and betrayal lingered in every corridor. Elena and Leo walked side by side, their steps silent but determined, the storm outside now reflecting the one inside them, relentless, unyielding, and all-consuming. Leo broke the silence first, voice low, guarded, yet trembling with something deeper. There's something I need to tell you, something you should know. Elena's heart skipped. She had seen the walls in his eyes, the hesitation, the restraint, and she already knew the danger of what he might confess. What is it? She asked, holding her breath. Everything, he said. The words were heavy with weight. He confessed to every stolen glance, every lingering touch, every emotion that had pulled him toward her. Every piece of desire that had built this dangerous, forbidden connection. But he paused. Except the kiss, he admitted softly. I won't tell anyone about that. Not even you if you don't want me to. It's mine to protect, mine to hold sacred for you. Elena's chest tightened, her throat raw from the fight to breathe. The confession was both intoxicating and terrifying. He had given her the truth, laid himself bare, and yet respected boundaries that still bound them, delicate as glass. And in that moment, something shifted. The fight was no longer about propriety or fear. It was about them, about loyalty, love, and standing together in a world that wanted to tear them apart. Then we fight, she said, eyes blazing with determination. I'll fight for you, not for me, for you. Leo's gaze softened, almost breaking. He had never seen her like this. Not vulnerable, not afraid, not bound by fear. But fierce, unyielding, loyal, and it ignited a fire in him more powerful than desire. Together, he whispered, taking her hand. We stand together against everything, against him, against the world. The realization hit them both. They were not just lovers, not just forbidden partners in passion. They were allies, warriors in a war defined by deception, power, and relentless expectation. The empire Adrian had built, wealth, influence, control, suddenly seemed small against the bond forming between them. A bond forged in fire, secrecy, and unshakable loyalty. They were alone now. No titles, no wealth, no fear. Just two hearts refusing to bow. Elena leaned into Leo, letting the heat of their closeness shield her from the world. Every heartbeat, every brush of skin, every shared breath became proof. Love could survive betrayal, scandal, and danger. Love could be stronger than power, fear, or even a lifetime of lies. And as they stood there, hands intertwined, eyes locked in shared determination, the mansion seemed smaller, quieter, powerless against the force they had become together. The courtroom was quiet, the air thick with finality. Papers signed, stamps pressed, signatures made. Elena's chest felt lighter than it had in years. Every weight she had carried, every secret, every fear, every ounce of guilt had been lifted. The word divorce hung in the air like a door closing on the past, yet opening to something entirely new, freedom. Leo stayed close, hands brushing hers, eyes locked on hers with unwavering support. The empire that had once intimidated, controlled, and threatened them seemed distant. A shadow of a life they no longer belonged to. It's over, he whispered softly. And for the first time, those words didn't sting. They healed. Elena smiled, a mixture of relief, exhilaration, and uncontainable joy. Yes, over, and finally we can be us. The mansion loomed behind them, silent, empty, a monument to a past filled with power and lies. They walked away side by side, not hurriedly, but with the quiet confidence of two people who had fought for their right to love freely. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of themselves. The world outside was vast, open, and inviting. No walls, no judgment, no restrictions. Just life and the promise of a future they would write together. They reached the car, hands still entwined, hearts still racing. Leo glanced at Elena, his eyes soft, tender, yet filled with something fierce. "Ready?" he asked, the simplest word carrying all the weight of their journey. "More than ever," she replied. They drove away, leaving the mansion and the past behind. Freedom was no longer just a concept. It was real, tangible. They could taste it, feel it, live it. The final shot lingers. Elena and Leo walking together down a sunlit path. No hidden glances, no forbidden touches, only open, honest love. Every shadow of fear and scandal dissolved behind them. Ahead, the horizon stretched wide and bright, a canvas for the life they had fought to claim. Their story was no longer a secret, no longer forbidden. It was theirs, untamed, passionate, and free. Wow. What a roller coaster. If you've been hooked by Elena and Leo's forbidden, passionate journey, don't miss what's coming next. Subscribe now to stay updated with every thrilling episode. Be the first to see how their love story unfolds. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what moment hit you the hardest or which twist shocked you the most. Share your ideas for the next episode. What drama, romance, or scandal do you want to see happen next? Your input could shape the story. Don't just watch, be part of the story.